I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, June 6, 2022 to order. It's 5:30. We're going to go into executive session shortly with a motion. We will return to open session no later than 6:30 p.m. Mary?
I move that we go into executive session to discuss three items. First, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, parens, Purpose 7, end of parens, the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22F and G, to review, approve, and/or discuss the possible release of executive session meeting minutes dated March 14, 2022, March 21, 2022, March 28, 2022, April 4th, 2022, April 11th, 2022, April 25th, 2022, May 9th, 2022, and May 16th, 2022. Second, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss with respect to collective bargaining for all town unions, and the chair has determined that open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. And third, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call. Larry?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Welcome back.
I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, June 6, 2022 back to order. We started tonight's meeting in executive session where we voted to approve executive session minutes and talk about union and non-union negotiations. No votes were taken on B and C, the union negotiations. With that, would you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
And justice for all.
Thank you. So we're going to start public comment and announcement tonight with Charter Lighthouse School proclamation for the butterfly mural. Julie?
Thank you, Michael. Good evening and welcome to the Lighthouse Charter School children who worked on this project. I attended the event and it was so moving and such an amazing exhibition of the hard work that you put in and the history that we have and how important it is to remember, especially in this day and age. So I'd like to read this proclamation to honor you and thank you again for all your hard work. Whereas Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter School acknowledges the difficult histories, especially the Holocaust, can often be hard to teach at any age. The Cape Cod Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter School believes that the middle school students have a desire to change the world, the ability to show empathy, and the intellect to take on the challenge of learning about the oppression and adversity faced by the different individuals. Whereas in January 2018, Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter School began participating in the Butterfly Project. The Butterfly Project teaches social justice, educating on the dangers of hatred and bigotry in order to cultivate empathy and social responsibility. Students painted butterflies as symbols of hope and resilience. While the school developed a vision and an action plan for the mural, students participated in different activities such as arts, social studies, and music, allowing themselves to explore the trauma experienced by survivors. Whereas on May 10th, 2022, the Butterflies of Brundabar mural was dedicated at the Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter School. CCLCS is the first in Massachusetts to have participated in the Butterfly Project. The mural is a reminder of the 1.5 million children who lost their lives and the role of the arts that played in providing an outlet to resist. The mural honors the commitment to the survivors to never forget. Butterflies of Brundabar is a special focus on the children of Terezin that were forced to perform the opera of Brundabar. Now therefore, we the Selectmen of Harwich hereby urge all citizens to stand up to injustices of the past and present, to teach difficult histories, show empathy to our fellow man, acknowledge the oppression and adversity, use the beauty of the arts to bring knowledge and understanding, inspire each other to learn and to be the community others want to be. Given the 17th day of May, 2022, by the Harwich Board of Selectmen, Michael McCaskill, Chair, Julie Kavanaugh, Vice Chair, Mary Anderson, Clerk, Larry Ballantyne, and Donald F. Howell. And I just want to reiterate again what a beautiful mural it was, how wonderful it was to see all of the contributions of the children and all of the information that was learned and shared with the audience. So thank you very much.
Larry, any comments?
Great job, fantastic effort. It's amazing to me that it never goes away. I read a review in today's paper about a woman who transported a school from Germany in 1939 to England with 70 students during the Holocaust. Before it was over, they managed to fund and feed over 900 children from the Holocaust, and many of them, and most of them without parents, because the parents never made it. And this is how many years ago? And for you to remember it, it's an amazing effort, and we thank you for that.
Don?
Well, I'm sitting here not just as a selectman, but as a consumer. I've got a kid who's going to be graduating this month. But having said that, I will warn you that she would recognize the proper term as being the young adults rather than the children.
I'll take that.
Terrific job, guys. It's an amazing school.
Mary?
Just congratulations, what a great project. Just proud to have you here to celebrate with you. Thank you very much.
Yes, congratulations, great job. Thank you.
Yeah, no, so I was going to say, we have, I don't think I have the bound version. Is it?
You could bring that and redeem that at any local.
I just want to say thank you so much, Selectwoman Kavanaugh, for coming out that day. And I would, there's a tricky balance in teaching difficult histories and not totally depressing young children. So we do stress the activism part and the part of being good civic citizens. Thank you so much for coming out, and I want to invite any members of the public to just give us a call or get in touch with us, and we're happy to give you a tour of the exhibit, and talk about what we've done there. We're always proud to talk about what we do, and we're happy to do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks again. And I hope you'll take them up on that because it's just beautiful, and you'll see all their hard work. So thanks again.
And we mean no offense by sneaking out, but they're middle schoolers. They do have to eat, as though I'm sure the rest of the meeting will be fascinating. They have to eat every couple of minutes.
They're far too young to be tortured.
Very, very diplomatic of you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening, Board, Town Administrator, and members of the public. I'm Noreen Donahue, and I'm here as one of your Water Wastewater Commissioners to touch on our water situation and water restrictions. Due to the lack of recharge over the winter season, we're beginning the 2022 season about 2.5 feet below normal water levels. As a result, we've set the following water restrictions. Outdoor watering is only allowed on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hours allowed are from midnight to 8 a.m. and from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Hand watering or watering with a hose is allowed as needed. We'll still be monitoring the water levels as the season progresses, keeping in mind that we may have to further restrict the usage as the summer continues. Also, we're expecting our new Water Management Act permit from the Mass DEP, which will most likely mandate more stringent restrictions. No matter what the use, we remind everyone to please conserve water use at all times. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Noreen. Any questions?
Not for me. Thank you, Noreen.
All set.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bernadette Waystack, Chair of the Harwich Cultural Council, and I believe last week I walked this invitation into the Select Board's office, but I just wanted to mention again that the Harwich Cultural Council will be celebrating the culture and arts of Harwich and honoring our past 3 years of grant recipients on Thursday at the Cultural Center, 204 Sisson Road, from 4 to 6 up in the former library space. And all in the public are welcome to attend, and hope to see you there. Thanks very much.
Hi, for the record, Elizabeth Harder, Harwich delegate, Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. First, I'd like to apologize. I didn't realize Joe had spoken at the commissioners' meeting at their request, and I'm really sorry for criticizing your appearance there. I lost my temper at the end of the last meeting, which was unprofessional. I've been bemoaning the fact that people are taking what should be simple policy dispute and making it personal, and then I went and did the same thing. I'm not a politician, so I am prone to speaking without thinking and without thinking about the correct way to say what I'm saying or saying the right thing. So again, I'm sorry, and I hope we can just put this all behind us and work together to make sure the county and Harwich are communicating and working well together. And to that end, I have a report. As I promised, I did submit the ordinance to the Assembly last week to allocate the money needed to ensure the contracts for Harwich and Bourne would be honored, and my colleague from Bourne co-sponsored. And the commissioners also submitted an ordinance. And then today, the Telecommunications and Energy Standing Committee that I'm on met to hear testimony and get answers from the IT director. And we met for an hour and a half. And so now the discussion will move on to the Finance Committee on Wednesday, because we're really trying to move this along quickly. So while I can't, as you know, make any promises, I am working hard, and I do remain confident that my colleagues will vote to make sure Harwich and Bourne get what they need.
Thank you very much.
Any
Comments from the
questions?
board? Don?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Just some ammo to bring with you. I know you know this, but we both pay fees to do this. So it's not as if it's a benevolence thing that's included in the budget. It might help their discussion about austerity if they knew that they're not saving what they think they are by cutting them.
Right, that's one of the things we didn't know before the cuts were made. So we discussed revenues and everything today.
Great, that's it.
Thank you. Mary?
Thank you, Elizabeth. It takes a big person to do what you just did, and I appreciate that. I think you've set a good example for all of us, that we need to focus on the issues and not one another. And much better to talk to the person than throw it out on social media or tell 17 of your best friends instead of the person, or do it in a public forum. So I appreciate that you've done this and given a lesson to all of us.
Thank you.
Julie?
No, I would concur. I think it's always hard to acknowledge if you've made a mistake and apologize, so I appreciate that, and I agree. It's an important message, and thank you. And thank you for your work on trying to get us back to where we need to be. Thanks.
Larry?
Thanks for your help.
We're getting there.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
Anyone else for public comment and announcement? On to the annual organization meeting of the Board of Selectmen. So up for debate tonight is nomination for chair, vice chair, clerk, interview, and appointment committee. Before I get started, I would say that just thank select board member Kavanaugh. She came in tonight to sign the bond anticipation notes, present the proclamation, and reorganize the board, and left something else she has to be at tonight. So thank you for coming, and with that, I think I'll open the floor, and if
Yeah.
whoever. Julie?
Sure. I don't know.
I'm gonna do you so you can get out of here.
Okay, thanks. I would like to move to nominate Michael as chair again for the next term of the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, whatever we are.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion, Larry?
None?
Don?
Nope.
All right.
All
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Joe, do you need this by roll call?
No,
Okay,
just need to know what the full vote was, if it was 4-0-1 or 5-0.
5-0.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would take a stab at this. I would like to nominate Mary Anderson as vice chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think it's a 5-0 again, Joe.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh,
We need, now we need to do clerk. Anyone want to make a stab at that?
I've been the clerk before. How about Dawn, you want to be the clerk?
I would. I'd kind of like doing the interviews, but that's totally up to the board, where it could be more useful.
I would like to be on the interview committee too.
I'd like the interview committee, so.
All right, then I'll take clerk.
Frankly, you helped me getting the motions straight, so
Okay.
it's like a
We
good
need a
match.
motion.
So I'm going to make a motion that Dawn be our clerk.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that leaves Larry and Julie will be the interview
We're
committee.
the odd people out, so.
I moved that Larry and Julie become the interview committee, because you really have to vote on it.
We have to.
Second.
not
Okay,
to
moved
vote.
and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, Joe. Okay, that's done. Consent agenda, Mary.
Yeah, you gave me some literature that, or Joe did, that there's proper language for this, so I'm going to use the proper language. I move for approval of the consent agenda and the recommendations thereon. And the consent agenda is a vote to approve the following Board of Selectmen meeting minutes: August 24th, 2020, August 31st, 2020, September 14th, 2020, October 5th, 2020, October 13th, 2020, January 4th, 2022, January 24th, 2022, and second, to approve 3 Caleb Chase requests, each one in the amount of $1,000.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the consent agenda as read. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Joe. Okay, vote to award the sale of municipal bonds and bond anticipated notes. Amy?
Good evening, Amy Bullock, Treasurer Collector. So on May 25th, we received 5 bids for a $5,490,000 bond. We had the 5 bidders, the lowest bid being Fidelity Capital Markets with an average interest rate of 3.218% and a premium of $458,733. So over the life of the debt, the total interest amount is $1,870,696.67. And I'm here to have you guys sign that bond tonight,
Thank you.
the coupons that it contains.
Thank you. And the motion on that, there's several motions that have to be read, correct?
Correct.
Sorry.
It looks like it's all.
I'm sorry, too.
Right?
Yeah, there is, so we got the first motion.
That was a scary,
Oh, those, that's each, okay. And do I start with that?
Well, you could technically give it to Don.
I think you've already given it to Don.
I didn't say you had to.
Hey, he volunteered.
Oh, what the heck. Okay.
Okay.
So the motion is actually the second line, though. Move to vote the sale of $5,135,000. The other stuff's preamble, correct? Correct. Okay. I moved that we vote to approve the sale of $5,135,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2022 bonds, unlimited tax of the town dated June 9th, 2022, parentheses, the bonds, to Fidelity Capital Markets, a division of National Financial Services, LLC, at a price of $576,963.10, and accrued interest is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on June 1st of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. You want me to repeat all the line percentages?
Yes.
Okay.
Bond counsel insists.
Yeah, they're not here, are they? Years in the year 2023, $545,000 is the amount, $5,000 interest rate. 2023, $170,000 interest rate of 5%. 2024, $510,000, 5%. 2034. Okay. Okay. So where were we? We'll do it 2024 again. 2024, $510,000 at 5%. 2025, $425,000 at 5%. 2026, $425,000 at 5%. 2027, $365,000 at 5%. 2028, $240,000 at 5%. 2029, $235,000 for 5%. 2030, $230,000 at 5%. 2031, $230,000 at 5%. 2032, $230,000 at 5%. 2033, $170,000 at 5%. 2034, $170,000 at 5%. 2035, $170,000 at 4%. 2036, $170,000 at 4%. 2037, $170,000 at 4%. 2038, $170,000 at 4%. 2039, $170,000 at 4%. 2040, $170,000 at 4%. 2041, $170,000 at 4%. And 2042, $170,000 at 4%. I can only imagine if someone's tuning in the middle of this. Be it further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated May 18th, 2022, and a final official statement dated May 25th, 2022, parentheses, the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Be it further voted that the bond shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town. That's a very pleasant ring, whoever has that. Thank you. Be it further voted that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions that are set forth in the official statement. Be it further voted that the town treasurer and the bond and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with the SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Be it further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-insurance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or such procedures are currently in place to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds and to comply with relevant security laws. Be it further voted that any certificates or documents related to the bonds, parentheses, collectively the documents, in parentheses, may be executed in several counterparts, that's a big pile, each of which shall be regarded as an original, and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file format or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document. And electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters related thereto, having the same legal effect as original signatures. And be it further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, and any other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. Do I read the certification?
You're all set.
I could use a second.
Second.
Amen.
Amen is an appropriate one.
Moved and seconded. I will not repeat the motion.
Sure now.
Any questions? We'll do this by roll call vote. Larry?
I only regret the students left, and they could have graded down on his reading skills. But yes,
You're an aye. Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Dawn?
I didn't realize this was rigged. But aye.
And I'm an aye. 5-0. And we'll take a pause so Dawn can sign these. Joe?
Mr. Chairman, before you take that pause and perhaps offer Selectman Howell some time as he signs, so this is meant to give you cover.
Thanks.
As part of this process to do the borrowing, the town treasurer, the finance director at the time, and I sat in a rating call with Standard & Poor's prior to this process, and I'm thrilled to report that Standard & Poor's has reaffirmed the town's AAA bond rating, which allows us to get these great rates. So we remain in good standing with the financial communities, and that's a great statement for everyone in the town to acknowledge and for us to be proud of.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Great work by all. Mary, any comments on that?
No.
Okay. Julie?
No.
Larry?
no, great, great news.
Julie, if you want to duck,
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Smile, Amy.
thank you for coming in for that.
No problem.
Nice talking to you.
Bye, guys.
I'll give you an update.
See ya.
Thank you.
Need any help with the car?
Could you read this for me?
Yeah.
Is this in there to discuss? Just information. I found it interesting. Yeah.
So eventually it will be done.
You would think we could figure out a way to ultimate this, wouldn't you?
It's too late for that, Larry.
Amen.
Need help? No, carrying them, I mean.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe, do you want to open B
Certainly.
and B and C?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your agenda, you'll see that new business, item B, is a discussion on amending the Town of Harwich Charter, specifically Chapter 2, Section 3, Clause 1, pertaining to when the annual town meeting is held. And as you'll see in your packets, that specific clause indicates that the annual the annual election of town officers shall be called under Clause 8-11 of Chapter 8. Then the second sentence reads, "The annual town meeting for transaction of other town business shall be held the first Monday in May." So if the board were contemplating a different date or flexibility on the date, it would require a change to the charter. Generally speaking, there's two ways to do that, but the standard way that the town has always done is to contemplate a charter change to town meeting in the form of an article. If adopted by town meeting, it's reviewed by the Attorney General just to make sure there are no restrictions or any errors in that. And then typically it goes right on to the voters at the next annual town election. So it covers 2 calendar years and pretty straightforward beyond that. So really, it's a question amongst the board to start. I will tell you that I was informed by Chair of the Bylaw Charter Review Committee that they're resuming their regular meetings after town meeting. They're meeting on the 13th of this month first to talk about capital. So anything like this that the board's considering can go before them for their evaluation as well.
Thank you, Joe. And this really is for discussion purposes. It's very specific on when town meeting is. I know over the years I've been asked why we don't do it on Saturdays or another day. And at very least, I think we should consider starting town meeting a little earlier in the evening rather than 7 o'clock. But the dwindling number of people or the seemingly known number of people, it would be good conversation to find out if there's a better time to have town meeting. And I think that a charter change to allow us to have a little bit of flexibility wouldn't be bad either. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually more towards the latter comment that you made. It's awful restrictive. You can only do it at that point. Even if it was just at some point in the first week, where you could pick a weekend date or another alternate date. The only thing I don't want to delve into is that there was a charter change in the 2000s that put the, was it 2000 or late 99? That moved the election so that you didn't put a newly elected person in the uncomfortable position of showing up at town meeting to advocate for articles that they had absolutely no participation in. So that relationship has to be maintained. But I think it would be better. I'm not a big fan on any bylaws I've written a whole bunch of them outside of government that are so restrictive that they prescribe things that actually make you do something and give you no latitude whatsoever. Because things are changing. Things can change. We have no ability. The times that we've done Saturdays, COVID, the override, we had like something like 1,500, 2,000 people. It was an amazing show. Kind of behoove us to at least try to juice attendance by seeing what is possible.
Mary?
I agree. I would think to change in there and give us the flexibility that you described, Don. But I would think we'd want to try Saturday. The Saturday we did it during COVID, we had better attendance than we had in non-COVID. So I would welcome a Saturday, plus I'm a lot smarter in the morning than late at night, so I think other people are too. It's late, you get tired.
I can't say that it makes any difference with it.
I'd like to try Saturday.
Larry?
And I don't know, one other thing, I was actually talking to Emily Mylan from the Voter Information Committee and just talking to her about, how we get more people to come. And the only way I ever got people to come to meetings they didn't want to come to was food. So do we somehow have food there that, I don't know, but I'd like to have more than a couple hundred people decide things.
Larry?
I agree. I like the flexibility. I'm not convinced Saturday's any better than night because people want to come, they come. If they don't, they don't. We probably need, starting early might help. It might help if we could maybe be a little tougher on the number of articles we come to town meeting with. Spend more time, be sure they're concise, and so we reduce what we had 58 or so this last time. So it goes in one night rather than 2 nights. But flexibility would give us time for more discussion, and I would like to get some more public input into that, because I'm not convinced right now that one is better than the other.
Okay. Anyone in the public? So is the consensus to, oh, go ahead, Jim.
Just one item. After researching the charter, the bylaws, and the various policies, the charter only speaks to the day. The hour is left up to the board, so you presently have the discretion
Okay.
of starting at a time that you deem appropriate. There's no restriction or direction on that. That's entirely up to the board on the time itself.
We have almost a year to determine when we're gonna do it. Is the consensus of the board to take a stab at more flexible language?
Yeah, my only contention is your comment is we have almost a year. Time flies. We say this every,
Joe will
getting
tell you
ready for
exactly how
town
many.
meeting. How many days?
329, but who's counting?
I think it should go as soon as possible, the charter committee,
Yeah.
and just have a discussion.
Should we take a stab at language through the administrator to make it more flexible so that we have something to present them?
You're all looking at me. I think he was asking you if you should
Oh.
direct me, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
so directed.
thank you.
Thank you.
As a companion to that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, your new business item C is discussion and possible vote on amending General Bylaw, Chapter 271, which pertains to annual town meeting requirements. And as you'll see in the packet, specifically what it gets to is item A of Chapter 271-1 is entitled Submission of Articles. It indicates that all articles to be inserted in the Maytown meeting shall be submitted in final form in writing to the selectmen no later than 12 noon on the second Friday in February. It also talks about the deadline for special town meetings, which is 40 days before. And then item B talks about a copy of all articles to be inserted in the warrant for any town meeting shall be submitted by the Board of Selectmen to the Finance Committee not later than 14 days after the deadline for submission of articles set forth in subsection A above. And so as I understood this agenda item, what you have there are two very distinct actions that are going on that are both timed not only to town meeting and the charter, but also to the Finance Committee, other groups. I do know, generally speaking, that subsection A, which was amended by the town back in 2013, first of all accomplishes one requirement under the statute, and that is the date by which citizen-initiated petitioned articles must be received. So we've been using that generally as the deadline for all articles. However, I think it's worth repeating that that has to be the deadline for initiative petitions from citizens. So the board may want to contemplate if there are two different deadlines. You may also want to look at how the deadlines fall, because one of the things that we're really impacted on is at the end of that process, and you may recall my presenting a very preliminary calendar a few weeks ago, and that ties back to the publishing of the warrant, which because the charter requires us to publish it in a newspaper rather than other forms, you're really bound by almost a 25-day process. So the intent was 14 days, but because of the realities, it's more like 25 days. So these are items in the charter and the bylaws that are really putting pressure on the calendar.
Thank you, Joe. Don?
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent, especially since when it came to posting for the open meeting law purposes, because this was kind of modeled after that, the mechanism for advertising. We kind of moved into the electronic age, but this hasn't reflected that. We might want to consider, both or one or the other. And the dates have always been confusing. I mean, it may need some, not confusing to the point where it's unworkable, but confusing about which class of people has to have it in at what point in time. You might want to be more specific about citizen initiatives versus selectmen sponsored articles.
Mary?
I guess the thing that strikes me, and I think it ties into this, I feel like that warrant booklet should be out and be available to people earlier than it is. And I heard that the first night, we ran out of booklets. Some people didn't even have a booklet. So I think, Joe and I have had some conversations about even trying to make that a little more user-friendly. Just simple things like each page starts an article, so you don't have to go searching. Having things bolded and boxed, just things to make it easier to see. And I don't know exactly what these dates do, but I'd like to see that book available to the public, and we could have it in Town Hall, the community center, the library, all the general places people go to get stuff.
Go ahead, Joe.
As a follow-up in response to that, there's a further reference in the charter that talks about that the Finance Committee has until, I believe it says the last day in March, by which to render their recommendations. So that's the extent of it. We could consider language that tightens that up so that we are in fact accomplishing a warrant that can get out far earlier.
Yeah.
But just understand that there are different components throughout the charter and now general bylaws that we have to be mindful of if we start looking at this.
Right.
But I think it's all ripe for review and potential change for sure.
And that's the process that you're working on, correct?
Correct.
Larry?
Yeah, I'm gonna let the process play its way out, because it has to go to the charter committee, I understand, right, to do this. I just, I like you that we're discussing it, not adding much, but we're working on it, because every year we fight the schedule and get it done in time. And so we have the workable schedule when it's published, but we also have to be sure that you're comfortable, department heads are comfortable, finances get the information to us, because has to be thoroughly thought out so it makes sense. And I don't know.
This is the first of a series of a lot of dates that I think we need to change.
It has to all fit together, and we struggle every year making it fit.
So could we also instruct the town administrator to come up with a proposal on this? Because in order for it to go to the charter review, we should give them what we're thinking.
I agree, and it's comprised many components, unfortunately.
And to me, it's just we're rushing.
Yeah.
Every year, these meetings are going extremely late, and things are being done very last minute. So this is a start.
Yeah, agreed.
And Joe, I think picking some uniform dates, we can go earlier and not violate the charter. We just can't go later.
Correct.
So
Right.
we won't have to wait the 2 years to initiate a new calendar for
Exactly.
this year. We can do it
Okay.
as long as it's earlier dates.
That's good, that's good.
The next time I present the calendar to you folks, it'll be based on dates that we want to hit rather than mindful of the last day to do it.
Thank you.
Great.
Noreen?
It's a new setup. It feels like you're walking down a runway, I guess. You may be going to cover this topic in, one of your future meetings, but when you discussed this a couple of weeks ago, the calendar that you folks were discussing wasn't in the packet, so I don't know if you've,
It's coming back.
all right, but I'm just saying, if I'm repeating, it's because I don't know if it was on that or not. In relation to the Chapter 271 and the relationship of the date of submittal of the town articles, not the petition, and the delivery to the Finance Committee 2 weeks later. One of the things, and I know we'll be talking about it, that I'd like to strongly suggest is, to me, the few years that it worked out right, that we didn't have snowstorms or other problems or anything, was when the budget session itself, the departmental day, when everybody's there, when that was done early, and that left so many weeks for things that came up after that to vet the projects, the purchases, whatever they were. To me, the only way you can do this, sorry, Joe, is by moving up the budget presentation. In the charter, it says that the presentation must be done by the second Tuesday or whatever it is in February. It doesn't say it can't be done before that. And I swear if I went back a bit, we used to have them in January. But my point is that, many towns do them in January, many do them in February. But if we were able to have the presentation done at the tail end of January, so that then the delivery of the articles would happen to the Finance Committee by the end of February. Then you could have a budget departmental day, the very beginning of March, and by that point, all the parties involved, all the committees would have a budget, you'd have a set of warrant articles, and you would have the capital projects. So you would have all three, and then you'd have the department heads. So you would have all the pieces that you needed in front of you by the beginning of March, which would leave you a solid month before the publishing dates and everything else to finish that up, even if there's a snowstorm, you know. So I'm hoping that that budget presentation date and the date of the departmental budget meeting can be considered for moving forward by a couple of weeks. And I do swear that we did used to have them in January, but I can't get that far into the archives. I do remember the discussions. I remember McManus was a big part about
I
it.
don't want to cut you off, but I'm gonna.
Okay.
Only because it's not on the agenda.
Okay,
But I did get the lengthy email from you per my request, and I will let you know when we bring this back, but it will be within the next month.
okay.
Because I agree with you, Noreen,
Yeah.
that we need to do it all earlier. Joe, so on the 2 items on the agenda, you're gonna work towards a proposal for the board to send to charter review.
Correct, and it will be related to the timing of town meeting, including the date, and if I may, to the previous speaker, no apology necessary. Couldn't agree more, that's why we're talking about this 329 days out.
Thank you.
328 now.
All right. Next up is Dawn. Update from Selectmen Liaison relating to the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust. And Dawn is the Selectman on the Affordable Housing Trust, so update us.
Okay.
Happening.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things. There's an overarching thought. Mary's been attending a lot of the meetings. You know, in an effort to try to push things along, because there's a whole bunch of a range of things that are just hanging out. We're trying to use individual trust members as point people for various individual endeavors, which is what you're going to hear ultimately tonight. The first one, and the most important one, was we've needed this for a while, movement towards the action plan. We pulled the plug on the action plan, which would be the blueprint for how you operate and what your priorities are and how you would assess projects in front of you. We only got halfway through, then COVID hit, and it was kind of pointless to get public participation when you couldn't get the public to participate. So I was on the phone today with Jen Goldson, who had performed the first half of the action plan, and she submitted a proposal, and Joe's office has it there, and I can't go any further than that because it would be under evaluation. Secondly, Jeff Lokentor has showed up a number of times with the adult group. We have a property on Oak Street that we have not been able to ascertain what could go on it. So in order to come up with whether or not it should be conveyed to him or for some other purpose, we decided as a trust that we wanted to procure a surveyor to come in to be able to give us an idea of where the upland is and where there are any wetlands available, which would give us the remaining acreage that would be able to be used to build something. The point person on that is Brendan Lowney. Concurrent with that, there was a 501c3 VA group that builds affordable housing for veterans of lower means. And they're interested in participating within the Marceline property by building a section of that out. And the point person, and that's been Larry Brophy. I gather he's met with Joe, but we haven't gotten to the point of actually agendaing it, to put it out in the public. The YMCA, as I mentioned this to the chair a couple of weeks ago, has expressed an interest in the Marceline property as part of a mixed-use concept where they would develop a part of it with the YMCA along with affordable housing of various types. Again, that hasn't actually been agendaed on the trust yet, but they approached me to see how receptive we would be, and I approached the chair to see if there was an openness on the part of the town to have that discussion. So that will be agended. And finally, we're at that point in the year again where the cell tower money that has been accrued over the past fiscal year, according to Carol, is $99,150. So that has to be agended so that the selectmen can vote, to convey that money to the trust's balance, which is under $500,000 right now, but that does not count the fact that we're booking the article from the prior town meeting. So it'll bring us up to about $1 million, which sounds like an incredible amount of money, but you couldn't build anything of substance with that right at this point. But we are exploring, in general, the idea of flipping properties to generate more capital to be able to pull off the development costs. Some part of that has to involve, we haven't even had the discussion at the trust, but I mean, there are different variations that of approaches to that. You could use the town's money as the development money in total, or you could use that to buy down somebody else's project as an incentive to do certain things that you want them to do. A little premature right now because the linchpin to all of this is Jen Goldson getting us up and running again and having the public workshops so that we can come up with a working plan for Harwich itself.
Thank you, Don. Questions, Mary? Comments?
No. I, as Don said, I have attended most of the meetings since sitting here and anxious to see some
Movement.
actual houses.
Me too.
Larry?
No, I haven't been attending the meetings, but I do appreciate the comments about the options you're exploring, the development versus possibly buy down, versus some partnerships, say with the YMCA, that might get us more for the money. So I certainly applaud that. I would just remind you that we also, as Mary alluded to, we want action as well. So hopefully we can choose the best of those and get something done.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. Joe, anything to add?
Nothing beyond what Don's presented.
Okay, thank you. Amy, do you need us still?
Sorry, Don missed 3.
It was because of the motion you had to read.
Yeah, wore him out.
All right, discussion and possible vote on remote participation. I put this on there. We've had conversations in the past about whether or not we're gonna continue with a remote participation, so it's really for feedback from the board. The policy is in the packet. The governor's order was in the packet. Joe, do you want to touch on anything before I go to the board members?
Just quickly, governor's order is set to expire next month. We haven't heard that there's any plans to extend that. However, there is a bill circulating on Beacon Hill that's presently in Senate Conference Committee that would extend it or make some element of that permanent. What we don't know yet is if there's going to be language about requiring it or offering it. And then last but not least, I would imagine there's at least 2 distinct conversations. One would be remote participation as your pre-COVID policy talks about, as well as the concept of remote access, which would be for non-participants.
Larry, thoughts?
Yeah, I think we all find it cumbersome, but I do like the fact that we get more people the opportunity to be involved in the meeting. I don't have a feeling for how many people actually take advantage of that. I don't know, Caleb or someone have a feeling, or
Well, tonight we have 3.
3? So I guess that's my issue. I like the opportunity, but only if people take advantage of it.
Mary?
I support it. I just think, yeah, there's only 3 tonight, but that's 3 people that obviously are interested in something. And some nights we've had several people call in. I think it's the way of the future. If there was a way to do town meeting with remote participation, I'd be in favor of that to get more people. I don't think there is, but I think it's the way of the future. The item that was in the packet talked about some of the committees, and I'm thinking we can get rid of some of that language that restricts them from remote. And I don't see why we need to approve a committee on remote. I agree that the chair should be physically present and they should have a quorum, but beyond that, if the chair's comfortable with several being remote, what's the harm?
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Point counterpoint here. I hear where Mary's coming from. Even going back when I was with the federal government, we did a lot of video conferencing and phone conferencing. Because there's two layers to this. There's people participating in a meeting that we're holding physically, or people who are conducting a meeting participating remotely. So I'm going to talk about that part. I find it at times to be daunting to be able to get everybody on the same page when they're a little box in a screen. I don't know that I want to encourage the actual committee meetings to be remote in large measure, because it kind of makes everything remote. I mean, it really, the attention that you're able to give to it, and body language that people give off, and what they're saying and what they really mean, we're not there yet in conveying that electronically. I personally absolutely agree for participation at meetings for the public to be able to remotely participate, because I think that's kind of important to give them every access point they could possibly get. But I don't know that I like doing business remotely for the committees themselves, because it tends to just be cumbersome, especially when you're talking about, say, the planning board, where they've got to go over, voluminous plans, and they're doing it across a screen. It's really difficult, and sometimes it's difficult to get committee members who are physically showing up to be prepared, even when they're going to be in a room together. So I don't know that I want to rely on them sitting in a room somewhere like 1,500 miles away in Florida, say, just as an example, that they're able to fully be up to speed on what the discussion's going to be.
Well, a lot of the committees don't have Caleb or Jamie behind the screen either, so they're running our electronic. So in some of the committees' cases, it would be impossible. I guess my concern with the public participation online is more related to hearings. And I think that the board, I'd like to see a policy of the board that the hearings have to be present and not online participation for hearings. And I can cite several examples as to why we would want that policy.
Don't think you need to.
That would, for me, the board hearings should be in person, and if you're gonna speak on it, you should be in person. Does the board have a policy with, crafting a policy related to hearings on remote participation? Larry?
I'm fine with that, because those have legal precedents that we have to pay attention to.
I'm good with hearings. I'm thinking more committee meetings. And John Shorey, when I first was on finance, I think it was all remote because it was still pandemic. He did a really nice job.
Yeah.
You could hear everybody, you could see. It's not as good as in person, but it was effective. But I'm with you on hearings. That absolutely should be fannies in the seats.
Anyone in the public wish to comment on this? Joe, I'll work with you on crafting a policy.
Thank you.
To bring that.
Yeah, just to conclude that, bottom line is, I think we should continue to try to do the remote where we can. Maybe not for the committees, but for public participation. I think that's critical.
Thank you, Larry.
Although Michael has an excellent point, those liquor hearings were daunting, is the most polite word I could use, because we don't have the capabilities to shut down people who
couldn't shut
weren't
'em off.
recognized.
All right. Discussion and possible vote on Board of Selectmen policy regarding advertising requirements. Joe, do you want to open this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as you'll see in the packet under item F, is the board's longstanding policy regarding process when there's changes in rules, regulations, or fees by any board, commission, or committee that have to go before you for final adoption. And it talks about semantically it might be different, but it talks about at least 2 weeks and or 14 days prior. But again, it's also and posting in a newspaper that's on Thursday. So that puts pressure on the overall process. One of the suggestions that I would ask the board to consider is, I think, even though we've got a well-thought-out policy, when it comes to your advertising requirements, you may want to first rely upon statute. Statute when it comes to, say, a Chapter 138 license, which would be alcohol, as you know, or Chapter 140 entertainment. The statutes, the state laws already talk about those, so you'd want to be consistent with that. Then it's really looking at other hearings that are in the charter that have different dates. So we've seen anywhere from 7, 10, 14, in one instance, I believe, 21 days. So if you're looking at that, you might want to first rely upon statutory direction, and then perhaps look at your specific policies.
This really came up last week on dump fee renewals. And by the times we got it and had the discussion on it, it was 14 days that we had to post that, so we can't approve the new dump fees until next meeting. And then the change of those fees will go in now, July 1st. So it's really not giving people that are selling these stickers, not stickers for the dump, but selling the passes, only about 2 weeks to get caught up on that. And we really should start this process in April, but I'd suggest we drop the 14 to 7 where we can, and I think that that's plenty of time to advertise most of the non-statutory meetings. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could talk outside the box for a second here. I grew up in arguably the second most corrupt city in the entire Northeast, Yonkers, New York. I mean, I could swear our municipal slogan was, "Who let them do that?" Because everything was a secret. But I can't imagine that everybody starts in their newspaper reading, going to the legals. It's just not something that people do. They did something, and of all places, Yonkers, that I was very impressed with through the years, and I still would like to be able to find a way of sneaking this in. How much simpler and more direct would it be to the people who are affected if there was a sign out in front of the transfer station that fees for this facility will be discussed at the selectmen's meeting of such and such? Or if it was something that's a site plan review, this site is subject to a site plan review of the planning board on such and such a date, as you pass it, or if you live by it, then you're really on notice then. There is none of this malarkey about did you get return receipts, or you sure you didn't see the legal notice? And if the idea is that we're trying to get everybody to be at a maximum participating if they feel like it's something that affects them or the town at large, somewhere or another we got to start thinking about how we can reach out, kind of like the town meeting thoughts too. I mean, the object here isn't just to do something that's minimally sufficient under the law as much as it is to get people who are affected by whatever it is you're doing to show up and say what they feel.
Agreed. Mary?
That same meeting I had with Emily Mylan, we were just talking in general about trying to get more information out to people and making information more accessible, and kind of taking the story back. Let us tell the story of the town, not social media or others. To that end, the town of Chatham, and I haven't even had a chance to show this to you, Joe, but the town of Chatham has an e-newsletter. Now, people would have to sign up to receive it, but I'd like to look at that, and that would be a way. I mean, we've got to do whatever we have to do according to statute, but if we could have an e-newsletter, and I don't know how often it goes out, but you could put those types of things in it. And if you make it concise, a heading, just a couple of sentences, people just look down and see what they want to see. So that's my thoughts.
Larry?
Yeah, I agree with everyone actually on this one. Because we're talking two items. We're talking about how to get the information out better, which is Don and Mary's discussion. That's first. And second item is what was brought up tonight. And I agree, if we could reduce it to 7 days, give a better chance. Those are really two distinct things that we should be doing. And I agree with both of them.
I would agree with Don. Nobody's going to the legal section as soon as they get their paper, and I think it's fairly expensive to have to do this as well. So I guess we could start with 7 days and look for alternatives.
It's not really 7 anyway. Joe's right. You gotta hit the deadline for publication.
So do we want to do 5 business days?
If you want to direct that to staff, we can work on that and get back to you.
Thank you. Okay. 2022 committee reappointment list. Vote to approve. Don, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, can we, Larry and I have spoken, can we, from this list, pull Bob Bradley and Jeff Brown so that we can have a discussion with them prior to, putting forth their names?
Yes, we'll rely on that in the motion. And then before we get to a motion, is there anything, Mary, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, the only one I haven't been able to reach is the Housing Committee, Meg Patterson. I've got a call into her, and I think Joe McParland has tried to reach her, so I'm not certain if she wants to be reappointed or not.
Or I can withhold her also from the
Okay.
motion.
Larry?
And there are several other people on here have requested not to be reappointed. I'd like to hold those as well. I mean, I can read them, but
I think Ellen
Well, the
already
list in
took
the
them
Alan
out.
did this,
The
yeah.
list in the packet is without those names, so we're caught up on that.
Okay,
She removed them.
okay.
And I guess my only ask of the interview committee is Charter Bylaw Review Committee. I'd like to have a conversation with some of the members that have been on there for a very, very long time, because I don't want to not reappoint Anita Doucette. She spent 30 years working for this town and did a wonderful job, and she's up for appointment. She's
Yeah.
the only one. But I believe it's a 5-member committee. Alternates are not listed in the way it's written in the charter. And our new town clerk should be on this committee.
Yep.
So I'd like the interview committee to look at the length of time some members have been on there and maybe suggest another committee to one of them,
Okay.
as well as one that might have a conflict.
We'll do that.
Don?
Yeah, given that handed that ball over, I do want to say that all of these are +3 except for the Affordable Housing Trust, which is +2, because they didn't give you the expiration dates for the proposed reappointments.
Okay.
So with that, I would move that we approve the list with the note that the Affordable Housing Trust's appointments would expire on 6/30/24, and that all of the other appointments would be expiring on 6/30/25, and that we are going to be withholding at this time, pending a discussion with them in person, Bob Bradley, Jeff Brown, and Meg Patterson, with the rest of them recommended for the appointments as noted.
Okay. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, Joe. H, we want to make a motion on H?
Sure. I move that we vote to approve the miscellaneous reappointments for 2022.
I'll second it, but I've been working with Ellen, and I want to caution you that we haven't, some of these things are derivative of charters from other organizations, like the county, and the terms, Ellen and I have yet to determine what all of those expiration terms are really. But I mean, certainly you could do it for the current year, but those aren't our expiration dates. Those come from the organization that's requesting a representative to us, from us.
So we can approve it and fix it as we get more information.
That's what I'm
Right.
recommending.
With adjustment.
Okay?
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Joe, 4-0. Okay, we are on to beach closure times. A couple weeks ago, we had this before us, and there was some questions, and there was also a directive to have a meeting on some of the issues that were brought up. Joe, do you want to start by giving an update on how the meeting went? And I would just say we have DPW director in the audience, rec director in the audience, chairman of the Rec and Youth Commission in the audience, the police chief in the audience, and the fire chief in the audience. So whatever questions we didn't get, I imagine we can get them tonight.
That's correct, and when the board had your meeting back in early May or mid-May, the following week, the group that you just mentioned was assembled. We met in my office, and we talked about everything to do with the original proposal. And so at this point, I think it's better to just turn it over to the individuals you mentioned, other than to say that there is a potential for a compromise, for lack of a better word. But the overall effort, if I'm correct, is that what we're all looking for is for whatever the times, plural, to be, meaning the beach and the parking lot, that they be matched up. That's critical point number one.
So the board will get into the time piece. Joe, will you just give an outline of what was determined, and as far as fires and speeding and pallets being stacked behind the...
Sure, so generally speaking, with regard to fires, and I was gonna look at the reference to the fire warden, I believe, but Chief LeBlanc made it very clear that, as was stated at your earlier meeting, the only fires that would be allowed on the beach would be essentially through the chief. If I'm saying that correctly. Nope. So I'm gonna turn it over to the chief and he can talk more. Swing and a miss.
Good evening, David Blank, Fire Chief. So, state law, there's been a little back and forth, but since 2018, and regardless of what the law says, DEP has a final rule on open fires. So the only open fires that are allowed outside of burning season, outside of July 4th, bonfires that have to be supervised by the fire department, outside of burning your Christmas trees between December 27th and January 6th, and outside of agricultural fires, are cook fires. By state law, you don't need a permit for it. You can cook as long as you're cooking for that purpose. It has to be, and there's a bunch of criteria, attended by a person over 18, reasonable size, in a clear area, and enclosed with rocks or a non-combustible container. That's the end of the day. But I can't even restrict somebody from cooking, and no permit is required. The current policy of the rec department basically mirrors that, with the exception that they issue a permit. And I think what Eric and I came up and talking about is, because it's a town beach, it's probably appropriate to give permission. If we remove the word permit from that process, then they have a little bit of guarantee, because there's a deposit being put down, that somebody's gonna follow the rules. And really, based on our looking at Red River and Bank Street, these are not the problems that we're having. We've been to both beaches a total of 7 times since 2018, only twice to Bank Street for fires. The permit holders, the people that are going to the rec department to get a cook fire permit, are not the people that are having the parties and causing the problems. But we can't require a permit for a cook fire based on my understanding of law and what the requirements are.
That was a cook fire.
Cook fire.
That's contained? That's
Yep.
not a pallet fire in the dunes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
So that's one thing on the enforcement side of this, Chief.
Yep.
I mean, clearly Bank Street, they've demonstrated that there's a problem down there with fires. So how are we gonna, moving forward, how are we gonna make sure that we're watching this?
So I would say, and I'm not, and the chief and I talked a little bit about this, whether that problem is being resolved before we get involved, our records would indicate there's not a problem with fires down. We haven't been going down there multiple times a year to put fires out. We've been there twice since 2018. So I'm not disputing that there have been fires out there. I don't know whether they're putting the fire out, being broken up and leaving, or they're just, the remnants are found the next day. But the fire department has not been going down there.
Okay.
Ultimately, the enforcement's gonna come down to, we get a complaint, we're gonna go down and put it out. That's what we do.
So it starts with the reporting.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Speeding was another issue. Speeding and lack of signage. Where do we come up with for speeding?
Well, I'll
Speeding and
defer
lack
to
of
our
signage.
Director of Public Works. We talked about that at the meeting. While he approaches, I would just say, regarding pallets, what we did affirm as a group of department heads and administration is that if anyone on Eric's team sees pallets behind the bathroom buildings, they're gonna call Link's team. Same thing if police and fire see it, we're gonna take the pallets back. That's also a clue to public safety that there may be a reason for additional patrol, because we saw pallets being loaded up behind the building.
Okay.
I bought you as much time as I can.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Lynn Cooper, DPW Director. After the administrator contacted me about that, I took a trip down there. And the sign, there is a stop of head sign. The specific letter I got, and the only was the only information other than viewing the board meeting that I had about this. So I went down there, and specifically, there is a stop ahead sign and there's a stop sign right as you enter the parking lot, right? There was a request for a speed bump. Speed bumps never belong at a stop sign. And I vetted that through a couple engineers, and I have that in writing from the Cape Cod Commission. As far as, I believe that is posted as a 25 Lower Bank Street. Or is it, it's a 20? Yeah, posted as a 20, which, as you know, takes special legislation. And I know there's a boatload of people that walk down there during the summer. Whether people go through the stop sign or not, that's not my jurisdiction. That would be more or less an enforcement issue there. But it's well marked. I'm going to refresh the stop sign and put a new sign up there. There was a discussion about pallets. We pick up trash during the summer twice a day down there. If my staff sees anything stashed behind a building or somewhere else, they will pick it up. We try not to leave, incendiary devices laying around.
You're gonna refresh the sign with one of those blinking ones?
I was not. There was a discussion, though, for the record, those things are like $1,500, maybe $2,000 a piece. They're not cheap. They're pretty effective. I mean, we started out with 39 Pleasant Bay down on Snell Road. They're pretty effective, but I had not planned on that. There was discussion that somebody may want to make a donation to the town to have that done. Certainly be willing to do that. Again, there is a stop ahead sign at the top of the hill advising people of that. So it's not a visibility. It's not a lack of signage, in my opinion. It may be a lack of people acknowledging they have
It is,
that
and we
sign.
can't park a police car there for the whole summer. And there is plenty of people that don't stop going in and out of that parking lot. So for me, a speed bump at a stop sign would be just fine. But,
Well, there'd be traffic engineers that would respectfully disagree with you.
excellent. What were the other issues that we addressed before we get into time?
From recollection, I think that was the majority of it.
Okay.
That everything else was related to proper signage indicating the times, or preferably the single time that both beach and parking lot would close. If that's voted, we'll have to go out to purchase those, but fairly simple, rather than do, say, tape and writing over it, we would replace the signs.
So the biggest thing was the parking lot closes at 10 and the beach doesn't close until 12. And the board members in the last conversation didn't seem enthusiastic about closing the beach at 10 o'clock. So I'll open it up to questions, and I'll start with Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the one thing that we're missing is that we did also discuss the uniformity from beach to beach. I don't know that there's a reason for why we would have to, because I know Bank Street particularly, that's a really dangerous, small, narrow road to get into it. So, I mean, I consider that a whole bunch different than Uncle Vini's heading towards Red River Beach.
Eric?
Hi, Eric Beebe, Recreation Director. Yeah, we wanted to try to keep it conformed from beach to beach, just to make it easier on people around town and the rules. I did check with some other towns. Most of them are uniform beach to beach, except some like Orleans with Nauset Beach and things like that. This is information I just got today about closing times too. Orleans, Eastham, and Dennis, for the most part, close their beach and parking lot at midnight. Yarmouth, Chatham, and Barnstable are 10 p.m. closings, beach and parking lot. I know there was some pushback on the 10 p.m. originally, because I know a lot of the arguments I heard was, if I go out to dinner and I want to go for a walk on the beach at 10:30, am I going to get kicked out? I don't think that kind of activity would generate the type of complaint that would get somebody kicked out. I think the 10 p.m. was originally brought up to make it uniform between parking lot and beach, and to give law enforcement the backup that if there is an issue down there that generates a complaint, they're able to ask those people to leave. But we did discuss a compromise at 11 o'clock as well. But we thought that the conformity between parking lot and beach to beach is in our best interest.
Eric, what was the time in the morning?
6 a.m.
6 a.m.
Yep.
And why 6 a.m.?
That's what it's been, for years and years. I'm not sure where it originally came from. But that's a good point as well, because people like to go for walks on the beach early in the morning, so.
Okay, thank you. Start with questions from the board and then get into the public. Don?
Just to the morning times. I mean, there was an aggregation of people who walked the beach at sunrise, and also when they were allowed, depending on the time of the season, walk their dogs in the parking lot. So that was why the early part, to try to strike a compromise between them and the beachgoers, so that they could carve out a time.
I had the fortune or the misfortune, I'm not sure which, to not be at the meeting where this was discussed. But I've had conversations with a lot of people, and certainly take your committee and yourself unanimous recommendation to make it 10 to 6. I don't think the police are going to stop my husband and I from strolling on the beach at 10:30, but if it gives them more teeth to clean up what are really, I'm told, very underage drinkers. This isn't the 19, 20-year-old crowd. These are some of the kids that can't even drive. So I'm in favor of the proposal you have, closing it 10 to 6, making it uniform across the beaches. You don't want people to have to think, well, it's 10 here, it's 12 there. It's simpler.
Thank you, Mary. Larry?
Yeah, I agree with all that, although I am in favor of the compromise at 11 p.m. Give it one more hour for the tourists and stuff. Just because why not, I guess, but, and being conformed. I'm still concerned about the speeding, though. I wish there was something more we can do. Because that's one I used to hear most about, especially on Bank Street. And I guess we run out of options, so-called calming devices, what we can do, but that's a tough one.
Chief?
Oh, sorry.
But I do like, I would vote for 11 to 6, just give one more hour, to get to the same point.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dave Gilmet, Chief of Police. If I am correct, Kevin, we have put the speed dollies down there, right? And did we do a study as well? Did Mark do a study or not? Okay. There's really no place to set up to run radar on that street. It's too narrow. So a radar enhanced sign, potentially. We've stuck some of those to fairly good success around town. But other than that, you're back to your speed bump.
You do routine patrols, obviously, down there at night.
Yes. I ran some numbers because I know Selectman Howell was interested. If you want me to mention those now or later.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I did a 3-year look back of every single incident logged at Bank Street Beach, starting from 2019 forward, and basically revealed that, by way of area checks, so total calls logged. Now, when I say a call, it could be a patrol-initiated call, meaning an area check logged by an officer or somebody calls up, or an officer's down there being proactive and finds something. Could be any of that. 2019, 258. This is the entire year. 2019, 258. 2020, 268. And 2021, 362 total log entries, okay? Of those, fairly consistent, noise was the most common nuisance type of a call that we would go to. And then there would be other disturbances, fights, traffic complaints, minor possession of alcohol, drug possession, things like that, underage drinking, crowd control, especially on the 4th of July. But across the board, just about 30 or so nuisance-related calls per year, and as you can imagine, they're all from late May through the end of August. But those log numbers, those 258, 268, 362, a large majority of those are area checks done by the patrols. So it's not like we're not doing anything. They are down there constantly checking, but you can't be there all the time. And we've also done, last year, some proactive stuff. We did plainclothes cars. We did, directed patrols on beach down there for overtime. It is overwhelmingly Bank Street Beach. And I'm extremely concerned about the 4th of July. We've been planning now for several months to deal with the 4th of July down there because each year it seems to get more violent. So I'm deeply concerned about it.
Chief, you got from the rec, carte blanche on 4th of July.
Yes, but my counsel for Mass Chiefs tells me that the board is the only group that can delegate that authority to me.
Okay.
And I need it.
What would you be looking for? The week of 4th of July? It wouldn't do.
I would be looking for any time that I would have the authority granted by the board to close any town beach at any time for a public safety concern. And that would not be a minor incident.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Me too. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the stats, Chief, but the emails I got, I mean, they did resonate with me, but my problem with this overall is a minor in possession of alcohol at 11 is still a minor in possession of alcohol at 8:30 or 9. The fundamental underlying problem is the zero tolerance policy. I mean, because it appears that there's a group of individuals at a particular age that feel like they don't have any problem if they go there because they're not going to get nailed for anything. And I know that's not what you want, and I would absolutely be willing to delegate the authority because they have to understand that the rules are the rules, and if it turns out that the only persons that are getting affected negatively by a rule change are the people who weren't really giving you a problem in the first place, that's not fair to everybody. I'd really like to go after the people who are a problem. Bank Street, that's why I mentioned the times, because Bank Street is a peculiar circumstance. It's nestled after a very small stretch of road that bends. As you point out, you've got no place at all to be able to set up a radar because the road's too small. I mean, it's so totally inappropriate for partying. I would treat them somewhat differently, and I would be more than willing to convey the authority for the police, if rec is agreeable to that, to have the police be able to crack down on the things that they do, because our rec is not set up to do that.
Larry?
Well, I think it's appropriate that we move to give the police departments and authority over the beaches. If it's the extreme case that we need to take action.
Joe,
we get a recommendation
Joe, will you work
from-
with the chief on the language for a policy for that, please? And then we'll vote it next week.
Can we do that upon the recommendation of Youth and Rec, though?
John?
Good evening, John Mahan, Chair of Youth and Rec. At the March 29th meeting, the board did take a vote, as Chief mentioned, to give them any authority they need. So now we pass it along to you for the final, but
Okay.
they're the department heads, they're in charge, they should be able to make the rules.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I would like to make mine a motion then.
So we're going to have the town administrator work with the chief and come up with
language?
language for a
'Cause it's-
policy, and then we'll vote it next week.
Okay, I didn't see it being that complicated, but we can.
I think we need
do
to put
that.
some real language to this
Okay.
rather than.
I won't be here, but I'm urging you guys to pass that, because I think that's a great
We
interim
all
solution.
agree.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone in the audience first, and then I'll go to online after that. You here, sir? Okay, you're next. Go ahead.
Good evening, Peter Macri. Together with my wife, we own 16 Bank Street Inn on the Beach. Sorry I didn't make last meeting, I wasn't aware that it was on the docket. I just want to share with you our experience. We bought the inn last year, April 30th. Love the location, I've always loved Harwich Port. Bank Street Beach has a great reputation, has always had a great reputation as a really family-orientated beach, pristine beach on the, on the Southern Sound. All these, attributes were, positive reasons as to why we bought the inn, as well as the close proximity to the town. Guests enjoy that tremendously, just the ability to come to Inn on the Beach, and I imagine the same applies to the other inns that are in the area, the Cedar, the Winstead next door. And, so we've had a great experience. We had our first full year operating the inn last year. Everything was fantastic. I would say with the exception of we've never anticipated that we were going to have to stay up every night till literally 1 and 2 in the morning, just watching over what's going on the beach and on the parking lot. And if you could just try to, for a little bit understand our perspective, we play host to over 5,000 visitor stays per year, just in our location alone. These are folks who are coming into the local economy, spending on average $800 a day per visitor. So it's a lot of money, and you can look these statistics up in the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. For our guests, we market ourselves, of course, as a quiet, quaint, cozy inn on the shores of Bank Street Beach. And, as much diligence that I thought we had to do, we did. We talked to neighbors, we talked to folks prior to buying the inn. What we never anticipated is what goes on there at night. Now, here it is, it's a little unusual. We host various events that are permanent events, such as weddings or clam bakes or whatnot. And here it is, we're enforcing on our guests a 10 o'clock closing, and quiet hour for all of our guests begins at 10 o'clock. So if you're down enjoying the fire pits, it's no noise after 10 p.m. out of respect for all the others that are staying at the inn. We just don't want the noise. The reality is that if people just can't sit down at the fire pits, it is unbelievable how noisy it is. You hear the cars coming, I don't know how far up the hill, but the boom, boom, boom of the bass as it comes down the hill. I see Brad's in the audience. He's got to hear it even more than us, and he's a buffer for the inn. So it's the traffic coming down the hill. The speed bump, it might slow them down, but they get into the parking lot, and they're turning donuts in the parking lot. And it's a cat and mouse game. I've met with the chief, and he and deputy chief have been fantastic and responsive, and I can't ask for more. But as we've even talked about, it's a cat and mouse game. They're clever, and they've got the ability to time sort of their knowledge of when the police are in the area, and they scatter like you wouldn't believe. But every single night, between my wife and I, either one or both of us are at the inn every night. You have to stay awake. It starts at about after dusk, 9:30. It rolls on till about 1 or 2. You get waves because it's sort of the arrival time. Then you get the noise emanating from the beach. If it's a southeasterly wind, you're hearing it tremendously, and it comes right up into our courtyard. And then the kids come off the beach, back to their cars at midnight, 1 a.m. And we have to be up, because if we're not policing it, imagine the next morning we're in the breakfast room and all you hear is chatter about, did you get any sleep last night? No, we didn't get any sleep last night. We've had guests who are taking it into their own hands to go out and try to quell the noise. And it's women who are, single women staying with us. It's just a range of all ages that people sometimes, just out of courtesy to us as the innkeepers, just won't come to us, and they won't even report it, but we'll hear about it the next morning. Oh yeah, we had go out and we encountered, kids that were just making so much noise, and they get in confrontations with them. And so I'm concerned what's going to happen, with these confrontations. The kids, they really just have no respect for the property. It's not the local tourists. We want the tourists. I'd love if it was tourists down walking the beach at 10 o'clock. It's not. I mean, we've had some guests describe it to us as like, hey, what's up with the nightly rave parties? It's that crazy. You have kids dancing on the backs of vehicles. It's nuts. I agree with Chief LeBlanc, is it? I think that there was only 1 or 2 fire responses. In the out-of-control bonfires, there was probably 3 of them last year. You know, we did have one really, really bad occasion where the smoke was, you know, pouring into the courtyard and you know, and set off some of our fire alarms in the buildings. But that really is a minor nuisance, I think, compared to just the noise that is there and the craziness that's going on. And I think in the last meeting, you know, you had heard some reports about the vandalism as well. You know, we've lost, you know, the kids are coming onto our property, they're stealing beach umbrella, they're dragging chaise lounges off the property. We find them, you know, in the water in the morning, we find them draped over the beach, we find them all the way down toward the Davis Road beyond the second lighthouse. You know, it's just, it's a total disregard of laws, rules, and regulations by, you know, the young adults and the teenagers. And, you know, the 11 o'clock time, I just don't see it. You know, I don't know what 11's going to achieve because the noise is going to be there. It's really, you need the parking lot to be closed. You need the kids, you know, sort of off the beach at that hour. And it's the parking lot that's the feeder to the whole thing. You know, they start to arrive, the car's there, summer drop-offs, you see the coolers roll out. It all starts around 9:30-ish and again, you know, proceeds up to, you know, upwards of 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning. So, you know, I do hope that you, and I can't speak to the rest of the beaches in town, obviously, you know, we haven't gone around, but Bank Street is really, really, it's surprising. I just never anticipated anything like that. So I think, you know, if the parking lot closure can be enforced, that is the feeder to the noise that occurs on the beach. And I think that sort of addresses, you know, what then transpires on the beach. I'm all for local tourists coming, walking. They're not the problem. It's, you know, it's the kids going wild. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman up front.
My name is Brad Broder, representing the Broder Family Trust property at 18 Bank Street. So my living room looks at the parking lot, next door neighbor to Peter. And essentially I agree with everything that Peter has said, that maybe even starting earlier in the day, but that can't be prevented. Folks move in and out, same kids, same cars. It's a cadre of people, and they come throughout. I live here about 7-8 months a year, and they come, they're there regulars throughout the whole time that I observe. And they come and go, and they party. The noise fluctuates, but it always, we can guarantee it's going to reach a nuisance level with some regularity. And I think, I mean, I don't know how to police it, but I think if there were a beach closure that corresponded with the current parking lot closure at 10, and then when I called, because a lot of those calls you have are from me, or my brother, so thank you for responding. You do need teeth, and I think 10 o'clock we're trying to put a stop to it. So I'm not in favor of a compromise because I suffer the disturbance.
You and Peter have convinced me, so I'll move away from the 11.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bob Nickerson, Harwich Port. So I actually have a piece of property on Davis Lane. I rent it, so I'm not actually down there, and I don't get to hear the noise you do. But I'll give you a little story from 10 days ago, Saturday night, when Jack Ferris, who was on the beach, lives next door to me, sends me a picture. 2 30-packs of Budweiser beer on the edge of my property, which is right next to the path down to the beach. So I got there before the kids came back to grab it, and they didn't get it that night. So this is what's going on, and so it is happening, and I know it's happening. Jack went down to Bank Street Beach about that. That was the weekend before. He goes, a car came in at 40 miles an hour, never even thought about stopping. We walk our dogs every day, and we go down Woodland to Braddock and go around. That is a very tight road, as you all said. You don't know how many times the swear words came out when I'm yelling at them to slow down. They're going 30+ miles an hour. Think about that at nighttime. The same thing is going to happen, I'm concerned about, and I've talked to the chief, on snow in. I don't want to do anything with snow in, but why 30 miles an hour? They do the same thing flying down that road too, and it's very disturbing when you're walking and people are not concerned about people on the street. So I would really, encourage you to go to 10 o'clock. I don't think it's going to change anything. One thing Michael said last time, and I agree with, people come to Harwich for the beaches during the day. Nobody's packing up to come to Harwich really to come to at night. 99% of the people that are down there aren't the problem. Are the problem. The other few that are walking, it's kind of like a speeding ticket. They don't have to give you a speeding ticket. They don't have to kick someone off the beach walking hand in hand down at midnight. I don't care if anyone walks down the beach at 1 o'clock in the morning, if that's all they're doing. It's the problems they're running into that need to be curtailed. And the only way I see doing that is closing that thing down, putting up a blinking stop sign, and if you want money, I'll press my neighbors and we'll give you the money. Because I stand there every day. We walk down with our dogs coming down Davis Lane. We just sit there and my wife swears at them because 1 out of 20 might stop. Honestly, 1 out of 20. And I'm not kidding. Just sit there, go in the parking lot. You probably see it, right? All the time. And someone's going to get hurt. So, I said my piece before, but I really would encourage, I don't think 10 o'clock is going to be a problem. I think the 11 o'clock is pushing it too late. It just pushes them out partying more and get settled in. And I would ask you to go to 10. And I don't have a problem with doing it just on this beach because I think there are different things in the other beaches. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Eric, is Bank Street the only one we close the parking lot currently at 10 o'clock? Or is that beach?
No, that's every beach
All
in town.
beaches.
Yep, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
And then
Yep.
all beaches are 10, parking
Midnight
lots
to 6
closed,
a.m.
and then midnight
Yep,
for the
yep.
other thing.
It's uniform, yep.
This is from everything I've heard, and I certainly sympathize. Actually, before I go any further, there is a gentleman online. Does anyone online want to speak? Okay. Mr. Waystack.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Powers. All of your entertainment licenses this year, you went to 10 o'clock. See some consistency there. They've vetted the project from Recreation and Youth. 10's the solution.
Thank you. Whether it's 10, 11, or 12, it's an enforcement issue from everything I've heard. And ultimately, we're not going to put a gate across that beach. I'm not sure it's possible. It sounds like the only solution is if we had a rolling gate. But how does this stop by closing the beach at 10 o'clock?
Well, one thing is, Bob Nickerson, the chief has some teeth to go in there and say something. Right now, I have empathy for the police department. They go down there and say, okay, it's 10 o'clock, because that's what the time is. I'm going to write you a ticket. Somebody comes up, gets in their car, they get a ticket. It was 11 o'clock, but like it was on the beach. So if it's consistent, they can do something. I'm not saying they're going to actually write tickets, but they can tell people to leave the beach and leave that if there's a problem. And that's the key, when there's a problem. They're not going to go down there and there's no noise, everything's quiet. You're not going to go down to the beach. Why would they? And that's the whole thing. I mean, we're not trying to eliminate the people that are having a reasonable time and having a good time. But the ones that are worth 60 beers waiting, that's not 5 people. That's a lot of people. That's just one set of beers right there. And it happens all the time. And it happens not only at Bank Street, it's down the beach all the way down to Myrtle Beach.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. But the 60 beers, you're probably right. They were underage since they left them on the side of the path and didn't put them in a cooler and carry down what they got. So that's still an enforcement issue. And that's still illegal. So if the police go down there for something illegal, they have teeth. So there's already teeth if we're catching people doing things illegally. And then, you know, I certainly appreciate what Eric had said. Certain amount of towns are 10 o'clock, certain amount of towns are 12 o'clock. To me, 11 o'clock's right in the middle. But more importantly, are we gonna do this for every beach when the only problem that we seem to be having is Bank Street Beach? I guess that's my question to the rec commission, or the rec director. And has that thought been put out there? I mean, this is a blanket statement that the town of Harwich is gonna shut its beaches down for people's enjoyment because of one beach.
Everything we've discussed tonight was discussed on March 29th, from the time to every beach to some of the beaches. The general consensus was consistency, and if you're not causing a problem, you're not gonna know what the beach closing hours are.
Right.
I mean, that's at the end of the day. So the chief asked us for a little bit of bite, a little bit of help in the rec commission, and they talked about 11, they talked about 10. At one point, 9 o'clock was thrown out. So, obviously, it's not even dark in the summer at 9 o'clock. So that's where 10 came from, and that's why we decided across the board and let it go. The troublemakers will be asked to leave.
Mary, go ahead.
I think 10 o'clock is the right solution, because it doesn't give them enough time to even get started. 11 gives them enough time to have a half a party. So I'm for 10 o'clock.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I think they've convinced me 10 is better than 11. I also think that being consistent is worthwhile, because my fear is that if you have one beach going later, the kids will migrate to the beach, the parking lot they can go out later to. So it's better if we're going to do it to be consistent, so we're not encouraging them to go to another beach. I was wondering, would it help to put on the donuts in the parking lot? I don't have a car that goes fast enough to do donuts myself. Can you, do lights do anything for you on that in terms of keeping track of the activity, cameras, rather? Because those are inexpensive, and at least, even if they're not used, even if they don't do much, sometimes people see them and they scare them away.
Without getting into specifics, yes, depending on how you did it, it would help. What type of camera and where it was put, it could help.
Thank you, Chief.
Don, any further comments?
Yeah, it's not a comment, it's a question before we fix one thing and break another. The lighted stop signs, where were you thinking of putting them? And there's a follow-on question to that.
To replace the current stationary conventional stop sign.
At the mouth of the roads that feed the parking lots?
Yes.
Okay. Do they go off at any point during the night?
I do not believe so. I think that would negate the entire purpose of having a flashing stop sign.
I get it. I'm just saying to those people who are in proximity, you may be trading noise for light, which is why people come here for some seclusion.
And I can only speak articulately about Pleasant Bay and 39. When we first installed them, we did have one abutter that it was a little bit of a nuisance. We made a small adjustment where it was, and it went away. Kind of unless you're staring directly at, because they're LEDs, unless you're staring right at them, they don't get you. But a valid point, Selectman Howe.
From a city kid, you recognize them.
Last question that I would ask for a motion. Eric, what are the exclusions? Because I was told that in the meeting you guys had that you brought up, I had brought up fishing, and 6 a.m. really was my question. Is most of the people I know that fish well before 6 a.m.
Yep.
And from everybody saying they're not going to bother those that aren't causing noise.
Yeah.
But how do you stop fishing?
I don't know.
I say that because that's a car in a parking lot. How does the police department know when they go into any one of your beaches?
Yep.
And there's cars in the parking lot, what those people are actually doing?
I don't think there's any way for them to know what the people, that are parked there are actually doing on the beach, whether they're there having a fire or fishing or drinking or whatever.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mary.
But if there's not a problem,
There is a problem, because the cars in the parking lot could be anything, and the police don't know. So we're creating a bit of a problem for the police. They have no idea what those cars are doing in the parking lot. And I also think, to Bob's point, where they left their beer, those people are not driving their car down and parking in the parking lot. so we're gonna have the same problem regardless of what time we close the parking lot. They're
Right.
walking in with their beer, parking someplace else and walking into those dunes. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, again, Peter Macri, in on the beach. Just maybe if I can make or ask for a point of clarification. Several of the times that I've met with the chief and the deputy chief, they talked about their inability to enforce because of the disparate times between the parking lot closure and the beach closure, in that by having it be the 10 o'clock beach closure, then you could have teeth for actually then enforcing the parking. And I've said many, many times that the feeder to the problem is the ability of the kids to park there to begin with and to be on the beach. And so by making the two conform, you know, there would be the right, and I'd anticipate that if you come down, if a routine patrol came down and heard noise on the beach and saw a bunch of cars there should be some enforcement at that point to either, whether it's ticket or I'm not sure what the enforcement would be, but I just want to clarify that that's what we're talking about, is actually enforcing the parking lot closure. It is currently 10 o'clock, we just don't enforce it currently. Yeah.
Right, my
That's-
question was related to fishing, because you're gonna shut down the beach parking lot.
I-
The teeth part of it that you're talking about, we have teeth in our laws, or
Yeah,
at least
yeah.
I hope
Oh,
we
yeah,
do.
yeah.
So if they're breaking the law, I don't know why we would need more teeth. That's simply where I'm at. If they're breaking the law.
Oh, sure, no, I think the point you're making, Mr. Chairman, is absolutely correct. It is a matter of enforcement, but I do think that the conformity of the times does aid with the enforcement.
Okay.
That's one.
Thank you very much.
In that regard, then, I
Go ahead.
take your point, Michael, but I think we need to help it where we can, so I would move that we close the beaches and parking lots at 10 uniformly across the town.
Second.
And I would encourage them to look at other, the lighted signs and actually cameras as well, other methods to keep track of the parking lots.
Thank you, Larry. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Joe?
The motion was to close at 10. Was there a reopen time?
6.
6.
6 a.m.
It's the recommendation we got from the
Right.
Rec and Youth
Thank you.
Commission. Okay, no further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not putting words into your mouth. I got 2 ayes and I thought I heard a third.
I'm so on the fence because I tend to agree with the chair that people who have bad intents do bad things, and we're punishing everybody for them. But I'll give an aye.
Okay. And I'm a nay. 3-1, Joe? All set?
Who
Go
was the
ahead, Don.
second?
Mary did.
I second.
Go ahead, Don.
We are going to vote at some point for authorizing the police to.
Yes.
Next week, if Joe and the chief get the language for
Okay.
policy together.
Yep.
By next week. Does that work for you, chief?
Okay.
Okay. All right, now we need to
You want a
vote to
motion?
rescind the board approval from May 23rd.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm not the motion person anymore.
Anybody can make.
Anybody can make a motion
Oh,
at
all right.
any point.
We were just trying to give you a lot of practice. Sorry, that's just coming up.
I move that we vote to rescind the board's approval from May 23, 2022. Discussion and possible vote to approve a new annual common viculars license. Grumpy Pete's Pizza LLC, DBA Alexi's House of Pizza, 181 Route 137, Unit 3.
Second.
Yeah, so the motion is to rescind the action of that meeting on May 23rd for Grumpy's Pete's Pizza LLC.
Maybe just a short explanation, because I understand in the
Okay.
packet was,
Did we have a second?
I seconded it.
Okay. So the long and short of it is Grumpy Pete's Pizza is not taking over Alessi's House of Pizza. The deal didn't go through.
Right.
And therefore, we are rescinding it.
And just for the record, Mr. Chairman, that's why your action is to rescind rather than to reconsider.
Only reason the explanation is I didn't want to infer there was something wrong.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, moved and seconded. No further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, Joe.
Thank you.
Joe, the next one is you. Discussion on 204 Sisson Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to get some of my materials together. So First, an update that relates to Finance Committee as it relates to 204 Sisson Road. Last Thursday evening, I presented to the Finance Committee on year-end transfers and was present when they reorganized. The relevance of this is that when the Finance Committee reorganized, they also did committee assignments similar to you folks. The chair is now Peter Hughes, Karen Doucette is vice chair, and Dana DaCosta is clerk. Additionally, the Finance Committee identified Karen Doucette and Mark Kelleher to represent the Finance Committee on a Sisson Road working group. So that is something that would require discussion by this board, and I would hope either in discussion with Finance Committee or at least the members from Finance Committee on next steps. Having said that, I met with various and appropriate staff members. 2 weeks ago, we did a site visit really to what I've been referring to, and I want to be clear, what I refer to as the west wing, and I'm doing that because this is left, this is right, and what's on my left is west. So I don't know if that matches the compass. I'm from off Cape. But if you're looking at the building, it's the majority of the building, the newer section.
That's east.
Which I now understand to be the east wing, so thank you for that. Point being, the focus was on the, quote, newer part of the building. Not the original building and not the part of the building that's predominantly rented by various tenants for the town. The focus was on the kitchen area, the auditorium, and the gym space. And so for each of those, I've directed appropriate staff in each instance to give me their professional narrative on what it would take to bring each of those elements, so kitchen, auditorium, and gymnasium, up to town's code, recognizing that it is a municipal building. Those uses are consistent with other municipal uses. An example would be for the kitchen and for the gymnasium would be our own community center, where the town already has a kitchen operating there and has a gymnasium. The auditorium would be similar to another typical use, which would be a school building, certainly a public school building. So those folks are working on that with updates coming back to me by before close of business a week from Friday. And so that will help us focus on potential costs to bringing those three uses into code compliance, and specifically with the kitchen, with an eye towards eventually using that as a workable spot, because it presently is not a workable spot, whereby the town might be able to either use it and or rent the use of it.
Thank you. Any questions so far from the board?
Sounds good.
That it?
That's it.
Joe, we had a brief discussion on the portable classrooms off the back side of that building, and you had a conversation with Sean Libby about that.
So if memory serves correct, there originally were 3 modular classrooms, one of which is presently occupied, so I'm going to have a direct conversation with the tenant to see what other arrangements could be made regarding that. But the other 2 are unoccupied, and there's a reason for that, so I can work with the DPW director and the facilities maintenance manager to remove those. That would also cause the town to revert the back entrance, if you will, that was modified. Again, this was while it was an operational school building, to become a hallway. We may be able to rely upon funds that are presently available under the revolving fund because it relates to that building, and certainly revolving funds starting July 1st. So that's something that can be done immediately unless there's objection from the board.
Any objection from the board? Mary?
Just clarification, these were portable classrooms that you're getting rid of? They have no value to us going forward?
So there was discussion, correct, there was discussion, I believe, when it was entering its final stages as a school. And my understanding of why a district would bring in modular classrooms is before you retrofit a building, you have a temporary surge in population, and it's not meant to be permanent. 2 of them that are there right now do not function. One of them is simply a storage space, and the other one is not usable because of water and other impacts on it.
Don?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I have a little bit more insight from Mary. They are beat up and old. They started as leased units when the elementary school was being rebuilt so that they could send some of the children into those as classrooms, and the then superintendent decided to do a lease purchase option afterwards. But that would place them a good 20 years old.
Really go a long way to cleaning up the back of that building too, and get rid of some maintenance problems.
Good.
Any objection from the board for Joe to proceed?
No, go ahead.
Joe, the other conversation, just to fill the board in, were the 5 or so 20-foot storage containers on the right side, on the east side.
So, thank you.
If you ever get lost, Joe, on the smartphone, there's a compass.
It's actually on my watch too, and I don't think like that, so.
It's an app.
You know, my mother reminds me I have talents in other areas. I'm a failed Boy Scout, that's a true story, for another day. Those storage units are actually used by Harwich Elementary. They were put there because when they were making modifications because of COVID, they stored the additional furniture there. So I'll be working with Dr. Carpenter, Mrs. Oldak, the principal, to find out where they're at, and certainly we hope that they'll be able to either bring that furniture back in or certainly get the storage containers out of there, because the second story is completely unrelated to this topic, but good to know as our community playground is nearing completion.
It looks great.
So we don't want those storage facilities there in that regard.
Lastly, Joe, second to last, the fields behind that school, there's a baseball field, and then I think there's a half a baseball field, or maybe 2 full fields now. Who controls those? Who rents them, and who do we pay the rent? Who do they pay the rent to?
I would like to defer to Selectman Howell, because I think that's what.
Yeah, we voted as a board to reconfigure the ownership, to specify that Monomoy owned, and you'll find that there is some sort of a sketch.
Yeah, we do have that. There's a boundary line, use line, if you will.
So I know the answer to the question.
Okay.
That question. We own.
Yeah.
So who do they rent them from? Who rents them? Who do they rent them from? And who gets to keep the money? So that's a follow-up question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because I know it is used actively by Little League.
And then lastly, your first topic about the Finance Committee, appointing 2 members as a subcommittee to work in conjunction with us on a plan for next year's town meeting, and to show everybody how much more revenue and what a great benefit it is to the town. I don't believe it was ever anticipated that this board was going to actively have a committee. It was that you were going to be the agent for the Board of Selectmen as the town administrator, and work with or include the Finance Committee and Capital Outlay in coming up with that overall plan. Is that the direction that we're going?
That's my sense. One of the things I would want the board to try to validate with the leadership of the Finance Committee is some comments that were made regarding the use of the building presently. So I think it would be helpful for me and the staff that I'm working with, if there was a clear understanding between you folks as the executive branch and the Finance Committee on behalf of the legislative branch, to make sure that both sides are on the same page. I think it would be better to do that sooner rather than later.
I'll reach out to the chair, the new chair, if the board's okay with it. But it was never, how do I say it nicely? I guess I shouldn't start tonight. It was never anticipated that they were gonna help control or run that building. They're in basically for information reasons and to help put a plan together and capital costs on that building. But the Board of Selectmen control that building, and the town administrator runs the building for the Board of Selectmen, not the Finance Committee. And do I have a different understanding than any other board member?
No, I agree with that. I think that, well, we'll let Richard speak, and then I'll.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Richard Waystack. Are you planning on anyone else being involved in the planning committee? You've got some folks from the finance committee, yourself, Mr. Powers. Are you bringing any other expertise in other areas? I'm sure the folks from the finance committee are well qualified, but you're going to talk to maybe people in the real estate industry who have a better idea of what current rents are.
So I'll answer the question. Yes. The plan, Richard, at town meeting at least, or the conversation was that we have a lot of local knowledge that we need to tap to come up with a reasonable plan for that building. So the answer is yes. My point really was just that the Board of Selectmen wasn't gonna put a subcommittee together to have more official meetings, that this would be a working group led by the town administrator. Joe?
Thank you. The only thing I would like to sort of change is that phrase "working group," meaning, and I'm going to look in the direction of our town clerk, who will be well-schooled in open meeting law, certainly after this week. But if I'm not directed, and I haven't been, that's my understanding by the board, to establish a group, then I have the ability, as your agent for buildings, to rely upon any subject matter experts that I think would be helpful. And that's always been my intent. That's one of my concerns about the recent action by the Finance Committee, because I mentioned that to them at their public meeting, that if we establish a working group, if we establish a committee, that changes the tone and tenor and the way we're operating. Right now, I'm able to rely upon our local experts, meaning our department heads that deal with those functions. It gives me great depth and ability to reach out to others, and it's not a public body, and nor should it be in the short term. Public bodies will come into play with the Finance Committee, with the capital outlay, and certainly with Board of Selectmen.
And I will reach out to Peter and relay that to him. And working group for me means exactly that, people that are going to work to get us the numbers and what we're gonna use that building for ultimately.
Thank you.
Larry?
Thank you, Michael. I do have a comment on that, because I think the working groups now are fact-finding and bringing in a lot of information. I think that's the first half of the equation. I think the second half of the equation is more of a marketing-oriented discussion about not what it would cost to get there, but what do we think is a value to the community that we can use. Could be, fact-finding for the kitchen, that may be it, maybe something else worthwhile.
Right.
And so I would like that group, then, at that point at least, be expanded greatly, bring in those sorts, I'll call them, for lack of another term, a marketing view of it.
Sure. Yep.
How can we best utilize the building?
If I could just quickly respond, I agree and appreciate that. When I had the team over, it was regulatory agents, if you will, from the various town bodies, town groups that deal with this. And they were unanimous in one item, that nothing can be done at present. It's not up to code. So before we even do that, what's it gonna take to bring it up to code for some future use? And so that's why we had that be the first part of it. Because I think Selectman Ballantyne's absolutely right. As we understand what it's gonna take to bring it online, then we need to have the equal conversation of what do we want to use it for? And who do we want to market to, and how do we want to market the entire use?
All set?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you. All right. D, Mary, I think we could just get a motion on.
I move
or
that-
Dawn, why don't we go to Dawn?
Why don't we let Don play?
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, before a motion is made, I just want to draw the board's attention. So the draft license agreement on page number 1, at the very bottom, there's a blank space there, and that's because I was working with council and the building commissioner. What I would ask is if the board is willing to execute this document, that blank on page 1 be filled in with a phrase or some phrase along the lines that says, until the construction is completed. And I can explain if necessary.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to execute a license agreement for the construction of and receiving a gift of a merchandise check at White House Field from the Harwich Mariners, as presented in the packet, with the additional phrase, until the construction is completed, inserted in the open area at the bottom of page 1.
Second.
Moved and seconded as read. Discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0, Joe.
Thank you.
E is we've been asked to reconsider the weekday entertainment license for the Belmont condominium that we approved, and they'd like to go from, instead of 5 to 10, 5 to 10:30. Live recorded music with amplification and dancing. So it's been 5 to 10, they're asking us from 5 to 10:30. Board discussion, Mary?
The chief had a letter in the packet that I think going back 5 years, he's never had a complaint there. So I'm good with this proposal.
Don?
I don't want to be contrarian here, but we just voted earlier tonight to close the beaches at 10 o'clock, and Now, somebody who's approximately 1.5 blocks away from the beach is going to get a live entertainment license increased beyond 10 to 10:30. I don't know. I'm the most aggressive on the board about noise and entertainment, so don't take me as the judge here.
Larry?
I'm in favor of sticking to 10, just so we're, in this case, consistent with our other licenses.
Listen, I have no problem with the 10:30 with the exception of what Don says. We've been very strict on 10 o'clock. And tonight we heard, for consistency, we should close the beaches at 10 o'clock. So in my mind, they should reapply for an indoor entertainment license because the entire thing is enclosed. And to the chief's point, there hasn't been a complaint. But it is an outdoor entertainment license, and consistent with the rest, I can't support 10:30 regardless of complaints or no complaints, just from consistency. Mary?
Just one question. Didn't we approve the lanyard for 10:30? And we had a little discussion about that it wasn't consistent, but because of the luck of where they are and no complaints, I thought we did 10:30 for them.
That really is a remote area. They're neighbors to a gas station, and this is really close to the water, and it's in a community.
Mary,
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hang on one second. I would look at what we did for lanyard. I thought that the concession we made was amplified music.
Oh, maybe it was
Oh, sorry,
amplified.
Music. Joe,
Okay.
you don't have the matrix, do you?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay.
Please identify yourself for the record.
Jay Donovan, property manager of the Belmont condominium.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you all?
Good, thank you.
The Belmont has been conducting live entertainment for almost 30 years at the property. We have never, ever had any complaints whatsoever from any of our neighbors. We are actually in an enclosed, I know it's technically outdoors, but we're in an enclosed deck with isinglass curtains, with virtually no neighbors. The closest neighbor is at Mill Point, and our music doesn't even reach Mill Point Beach. The neighbors next door are the timeshare resort, and they're much noisier than we are to begin with. There's no public beach. The Belmont is on a completely private beach, so there'd be there's no neighbors affected at all.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we reconsider the weekday entertainment license for Belmont Condominium Trust, DBA Belmont Beach Club, 1 Belmont Road, Friday and Saturday, 5 to 10:30, outside, live recorded music, amplification, and dancing.
Any second? Okay, no second. That means it does not go forward tonight because there was no second. So it is not approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Contracts, Joe, before we read the first one on the fire department vehicles, will you just explain it as there is no line item with dollar amounts or anything else for the public? So just for the public that is watching or will watch, you just tell them what it is.
Thank you, and for the record, what I'll rely upon is the second page of the packet. Well, second document, third page, I think. So this is related to Article 27 of this year's annual town meeting. The chief is being proactive on this, given how long we know it takes for vehicles to be manufactured, purchased, and equipped. And so this was an article that I believe was unanimously adopted at this town meeting. It's fully funded, and the chief and the procurement team have gone through the proper protocols, separate from my cover memo.
Thank you. Total cost $129,070.28. Could we just have that into the motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve fire department vehicle procurement in the amount of $129,070.28. Any further discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Mary can do the next two, or Don can do the next two, or whomever.
Let's see here. Sewage improvements. I move that we approve change order for Phase 2, change order number 5 to RJV Construction Corporation, in the amount of $3,592.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in
No.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, Joe?
And let's see here. I also moved a vote to approve a change order for Phase 2, change order number 8 for Robert B. Auer Company in the amount of $4,559.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. 4-0, Joe? Thank you. Town Administrator's report.
Well, to try and dovetail the meeting, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that my daughters, it didn't take a lot of persuading, but they convinced me to watch the live stream of the Monomoy Regional High School graduation ceremony. It was fantastic. We watched it live, and then they insisted we watch it the next day again in review. But this is a great time of year, and to start out the meeting with such a compelling support of the Lighthouse School and the work they do, and having seen all the accomplishments and just a wonderful ceremony this weekend, it's just a great feeling all around. So I would be remiss if I didn't say to all of the classes, but certainly to our Sharks, to the Monomoy Regional High School class of 2022, congratulations and good luck, and what a wonderful ceremony.
Thank you, Joe. Selectmen's report, Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as a biased parent, I might also point out to you that the Lighthouse Charter School and the Tech High School are both public schools that are located within the confines of the town of Harwich, and we are proud of all those students.
Larry?
I have nothing to add to that, but enjoy the evening.
Mary?
I'd just like to comment on the Memorial Day ceremony at Brooks Park. It was just a wonderful ceremony. The speakers, the music, the a cappella group from the high school, the Cub Scouts, including the littlest one that kept twirling around. It was just great. And a real highlight was Selectman Howell's speech. I called him because you disappeared pretty quickly, but he brought in history, he brought in current events. It was just quite impressive, and I commend you for that.
I really appreciate it. Michael knows I've said this before. I feel like this is a part of Americana. I really take it seriously. It's your Norman Rockwell moments that you do not get in large cities.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.